Hello, Galaxy! I'm Chris Pirillo, and you've tuned into another live edition of the LockerGnome Daily Report. I have not reset myself a couple of times. This is live. It's an hour full of me. I mean, this is really what happens. I'm hosting this hour. We're going to begin with a topic, an open topic. And the topic today is something that is near and dear to my heart. Why The Force Awakens may very well mirror themes from A New Hope. I'm going to give you at least 3 reasons, cogent reasons, because it seems that some people still are not happy with the new Star Wars, even though the new Star Wars really isn't new. It's old. It's happened a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, but it's still very close to my heart. After I'm done with that, I'm going to be highlighting today's Pirillo picks, and you're going to love today's. It's a big deal. Spoiler alert, I've already shared an image, a photo. That's also an image. An image is a photo, really, in my social feeds, and I did that yesterday, so no one can claim, well, I didn't see it live. It doesn't count. Yes, it does. Now, if you're not tuned in live, you're probably not a patron. You can become a patron by heading over to chrispirillo.com, and then you get all of TLDR, because after all of this, I'm going to be answering tech questions, answering some questions that are geeky in terms of pop culture, and then talking about today's geeky and tech news. That is specifically for the patrons. I do want to make mention, though, before I go into this, that I'm very excited about today's pick. It's coming. Okay. It is something that I've wanted and didn't realize I wanted. Just a little teaser there. A lot of people seem to believe that The Force Awakens didn't do anything original, that it was too much like the first Star Wars movie, which at the time of its release was not A New Hope. It was just Star Wars. It was a standalone. That's how it was produced, or at least packaged up and then presented to the world. I was lucky enough to see it in its first run. The first time I saw The Force Awakens, I could not quite pick up on how anything was similar. The second time I saw it, I still wasn't seeing what people were saying. Now, the fourth time I saw it, I'm not going to mention the third time. The fourth time I saw it, I had something sticking in my head, looking specifically for, I guess that is a lot like it was in A New Hope. But you know what? That took away from me enjoying the movie. So I think some people are thinking too hard about this. Now, maybe I'm not thinking hard enough. Then again, that's just been my approach to enjoying things that are generally produced from not just within the Star Wars galaxy of entertainment, but any kind of movie or entertainment that's related to fantasy. The first reason it might mirror A New Hope is because for us to move forward, we had to look back briefly, ever so slightly. So we had to touch the past to be able to go into the future. This was something that was very important, not just from a fan perspective, I believe, a Star Wars fan perspective, but generally speaking from Disney's perspective. They needed The Force Awakens to work, and I would say that based on the statistics that it's generated, how many times it's been seen in theaters to this point, I'd say that the gamble paid off. So for a lot of fans who might have grown up with the original trilogy, and I'm not talking about the prequels necessarily. The prequels took them away from the fandom. Some of them. Not all. Some of them. And the prequels brought in new fans to Star Wars and the fandom. For some, the cartoons, whether it was the Clone Wars or in a certain, subset of people, the Star Wars Rebels cartoon series brought people into the Star Wars galaxy. But the movies have driven Star Wars forward in terms of entertainment, for the most part. For Disney to be able to work within the Star Wars universe, it had to do something that was similar, but not similar. And so to be able to touch upon the themes of the past propelled us into the future with new characters, new settings, new environments. To me, it was everything it needed to be. Touching the past, not dwelling on it. And giving us enough closure with certain, not just storylines or characters or settings or any aspect of the Star Wars story. We had to pay attention to the past to be able to move forward. And I think that was done effectively and shown and illustrated in such a way that we're able to acknowledge that the past happened, but to be able to move into the future is exactly where we're going. I mean, to me, it was the one plot point that was indicative of this was the First Order basically destroying the government. They basically wiped out Hosnian Prime and were angry about the government and the Senate, and they were done. They're done. This, to me, that was it. That was the biggest, hey, pay attention, this is not the same. This is not the same. This never happened before. That's a big deal. They've wiped the slate clean, effectively. And so they acknowledge the past, but they've destroyed the past, and they're moving into the future. So for anybody who is wanting to draw parallels between A New Hope or the original trilogy and what we see in The Force Awakens, they had to pay attention to the past, but now they're moving forward. History repeats itself. This is something, another reason. I've said this over and over again. History repeats itself. Here I am making history. It's believable. And this is, to me, it would be more shocking if history didn't repeat itself. Because inevitably, when a new generation comes along, they think they're different from the previous generation, but in fact, they're not. If you want something that's unbelievable, do something radically different. That is unbelievable. Because history repeats itself, and the smugness of evil and the arrogance of youth, I thought were very well represented in The Force Awakens at a different level than they might have been presented in A New Hope. But history repeats itself. For everyone who wants to draw a direct parallel and say, well, it's too close to this, it's too close to this, it's a remake, it's a reboot. No. History repeats itself. That is believable. It is more believable than seeing something play out that is not history repeating itself effectively, something completely different, because we build upon the past to move into the future. This is what we do, and we believe we're doing it differently, but no, it's not the idea, it's the execution. I've said that before about technology in general, or business. Another reason why it may be mirroring the past, the echoes of the past, is to really give credence and credibility to the theory. And I don't think that was its reason outright, but the Star Wars ring theory is real. It's a real thing, and it absolutely deserves your attention. I don't care what you feel about the prequels. You need to pay attention to the Star Wars ring theory. It makes a lot of sense. And in that context, we would expect something to play out the way it did within The Force Awakens. The Star Wars is about light and dark. Not so much good and evil, light and dark. It's about the Force. And for us to feel like we were back within that galaxy, we had to remember where it was and where it's been and where it might be going. So it had to effectively be what it was. And this is, again, I don't think they sat down and thought, we need to adhere to the Star Wars ring theory. But I do believe it just, again, adds more credibility to that which has been posited in the Star Wars ring theory, which most people who have had knee-jerk reactions and don't like The Force Awakens have not bothered with. And they should. If you consider yourself a fan, you absolutely do need to spend a good hour or two poring over the essay. StarWarsRingTheory.com. Another reason I'm just adding on top of this at this stage, veering too far away from the formula could have spelled disaster. And as I speak to that point, I'm going to slide over my iPad Pro and press the button. It is sitting on top of today's Pirillo picks. I don't want to spoil it, though. You're going to have to wait for that. That's the thing that I think is most surprising to me, and this is one observation that has been mirrored by other people. People who didn't like the Star Wars prequels didn't like The Force Awakens. But they didn't like the Star Wars prequels because they were too different. And they didn't like The Force Awakens because it was too similar. I'm like, wait a minute, what do you want? You're never going to be happy, right? So veering too far away from that formula would have spelled disaster for Disney. They could have gone a completely different direction and done something radically different, but you might have already known that they had plans to do different things within the Star Wars galaxy with what was formerly called Star Wars anthology films, now known as Star Wars stories. these stories are going to give Disney a chance to play within the galaxy with characters, planets, names, situations, etc., but not necessarily be episodic in nature. And so Disney has plans on being bold and different and exciting and the things that some Star Wars fans may be looking for, but the episodic content, or episodes 7, 8, 9, were not the time or the place. So veering too far away from that formula, I think, especially with that first film, this, in my estimation, really a litmus test to know whether or not just from a fan perspective, Disney was going to do well with the films, but also whether or not the fans were going to accept what Disney was going to do, and if Disney could produce, and they did. I think they exceeded my expectations, if I had any to begin with. And that's something that I think, would herald in or usher in a new, or be the herald for a new era of Star Wars fandom, and that excites me. But veering too far away from the formula, it would have been too different, and it would have been dangerous for the Star Wars franchise in general. That's my feeling. That's absolutely, well, everything's my feeling. Everything's my opinion. Oh, you're seeing the corner of the box. Do you see it? Okay, I'm going to push it away and get back to that in just a second during the live broadcast. So think about that. If it would have been different, too different, it wouldn't have worked. Some people wanted different. Wait, that's what Star Wars stories are for. And again, I will repeat this. It is my opinion. It's my perspective. I've thought about this pretty deeply, because honestly, this time of year, I don't think about much else. Except for the new Garbage Pail Kids series, which is coming out soon. I've been thinking about that. That is true. I've been thinking about that. Right now, I am going to move on to today's Pirillo picks. You are going to love it. And then after that, getting into the techie geeky questions and techie geeky news and stuff. And you can tune in for all that. All you have to do is become a patron. Head over to chrispirillo.com for more information. And now, I'm moving on to Pirillo picks. Today's free podcast highlight was brought to you by all of my active patrons from chrispirillo.com. If you want access to the full TLDR episodes, both audio, video, past, present, and future, which can be up to an hour long or longer, with even more tech insight from me every weekday, plus other bonus content without ads, and supporting me at the same time, you can sign up to become one of my supernomies too. This is just a brief taste of what I'm producing for you daily. Again, get more through chrispirillo.com.